I have started the recording just as a backup for the meeting, and Tyler said, just a second, now he says audio is up. Okay, so we will begin. So today is Thursday, May 13th, 2021, and this is a meeting of the Pioneer Valley Regional School District School Committee. This meeting is being recorded by myself as well as Bernardston-Northfield Community Television for future broadcast. It is also being streamed live via the Facebook page. This meeting is being held via Google Meet in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GL section or code 30A, section 20. So link to view the school committee meeting will be available on our website at PVRSD-K-12.org. And like I said, you can also view it on Facebook.com/BNCTV. So I'm going to do a roll call now. All right, Jim Bell.
I'm here.
Raina Dastu.
Present.
Alan Genevieve. I see Alan, but he's muted. There, Alan, you just need to come off of mute.
Yeah, present. It's funny, I took myself off mute, but you still couldn't hear me. Sorry. Present.
No, that's Michelle Girusso.
Here.
Jeannie Milton. See Jeannie. Robin Knight. Karen
Here.
Nathan Schwartz.
Nathan Schwartz here.
Mike Townsley.
Mike Townsley here.
Stephanie Winslow.
Stephanie Winslow here.
David Young. Okay, and Julie Burke is here. So it looks like 9 out of our 12 members are present this evening. And I was informed that we do not have any citizens' comments. No one signed up to speak this evening for citizens' comments. So our first order of business is to review the minutes. So we have the minutes from April 8th, 2021. Upon reviewing them, is there any discussion?
I'll move to accept the minutes, sorry. This is Michelle from Leiden.
It looks like Karen has her hand raised. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah. So on page 4, under 9, in the first line, there's the word objects, but I think it's objectives.
Okay.
And under 14, in the first line, an E was left off Alan's last name. That's it.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion by, oh, Alan, your hand is raised.
Yeah, so since we're doing grammatical, on page 3 of the April minutes, the second paragraph from the top, it should read in the second sentence, Dupre reported, it is fairly typical not to be. It says no. Normally I would just tell that person that, but.
Well, thanks. Okay. We have a motion that was made by Michelle to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion? Further discussion? All right, we'll do a vote here. Or can I, do we have to do them separately? Or can we do both of the, I guess we'll do it one at a time. The motion was made for the April 8th minutes. Okay, Jim Bell,
Yes.
Raina Dastu,
Yes.
Alan Genevieve,
Yes.
Michelle Jerusik,
Yes.
Jeannie Milton, if she has, I don't, or Robin Knight. I think so. Karen O'Neill,
Yes.
Nathan Swartz,
Yes.
Mike Townsley,
Mike Townsley, yes.
Stephanie Winslow,
Stephanie Winslow, yes.
David Young, I don't see him as joined yet. And Julie Burke, yes. Jeannie, I did see that you arrived. Are you here with us?
I am.
Great. Hi, Jeannie.
Hi, everybody.
Did you have an opportunity to review the minutes for the April 8th meeting?
You know what? I haven't, so I guess I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that passes for the approval of the minutes for April 8th, 2021. Next, we have the minutes for May 4th, 2021. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? Karen, your hand is up.
I have a question. Perhaps I missed it, but I did not see those minutes.
I was hoping that I missed it and that everybody else had received them because I just went through it. And I only had April 8th. So,
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that because I looked everywhere and said, well, I must have missed them.
piece of paper.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will go back to Joanne and we will approve those at our June meeting. Thanks very much.
I was unable to attend that meeting, so I've watched the video and I'm working on them as we speak.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you, Anne. Perfect. Okay. So I guess we can move on now. Superintendent report.
Hi, everyone. Ryan Potter emailed me today, and I don't think he's going to be able to make the meeting this evening. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. But we're really excited to have all our middle school and high school students back full-time in person. They joined us Monday, April 26th. So right now we have over 90% of our students back in person district-wide, which is fantastic. It's great to see the hallways, bustling with students going from class to class and getting back to more of a normal routine. I did see the CDC is lifting or recommending no face coverings inside. So hopefully soon enough, our state, will be doing the same. And I'm hopeful for a normal return this fall to school. Recently, we had the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency donate PPE, hand sanitizer, and surface disinfectant wipes to our school. The National Guard, the Massachusetts National Guard delivered them. And it included over 6,000 face masks, 1,000 pairs of gloves, and over 12,000 disinfecting wipes, which will be distributed throughout our district. So we're grateful to them. That was very generous. We were happy to see them arrive and distribute that to us. Our district will be running a summer school program this summer for the first time at Bernardston Elementary, Northfield Elementary, and Pioneer. The program's going to run from July 6th to July 30th. And then Pioneer is also going to be offering another week from August 23rd to the 27th, which is open to grades 7 through 10. So right now we've posted for coordinators for the summer school program at each school. So we're going to be in the process of hiring them, and then we will get organized and update the committee as details are worked out regarding our summer school program. So this will be good to try to start to close any educational gaps that were caused by COVID. We celebrated our wonderful teachers last week as part of Teacher Appreciation Week. There are really some incredible events to honor our amazing staff and all the hard work they've done this year through this challenging year. This past Wednesday was National School Nurse Day. For the past 15 months, school nurses have helped districts reopen schools, address COVID-19 questions and concerns, order and provide PPE, all in addition to their normal and usual duties. Again, it's been a very challenging year. They've gone, like our staff, above and beyond district-wide. So I just want to say thank you to all of our staff, our teachers, our nurses, and our administrators also. Administration week wasn't this week, but they did a tremendous job, not only this week honoring their teachers. I know there were barbecues at Pioneer for staff, and PTOs did some incredible events with all sorts of food and small gifts to our elementary staff. So it was a great week. It seemed like there was a lot of joy, probably the most I've seen in the past year. It just felt great, to see everybody kind of getting back to a sense of normalcy. So, and then I just included some of the the moving up ceremony dates at Bernardston Elementary School and Northfield Elementary School. The graduation at Pioneer, the date is in there. I believe school committee is welcome to bring one guest as well. I think you just have to email maybe Joanne that information. If you didn't receive that in an email, we'll send that out to you soon, but I think she might have sent that out. But there's awards, academic awards day at Pioneer coming up, and some other fun events like the senior breakfast and the class photo with the gowns. So it should be a really nice event, for our graduating seniors. So that's going to be held this year at Pioneer, not the drive-in, but the drive-in was definitely memorable and something I'll never forget. That's really it for my report. If anyone has questions, but it was just a great week, really. Just great to have the kids back, in session. So it feels good around the district. Thank you.
Yes, it's nice to have some good vibes going, right? I think that Alan has his hand raised as well as Raina. So Alan?
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of things. I don't recall in the April minutes any update providing the 6th grade move up, nor did I see it in the May report. And I think that's really important. I know there's not a lot going on, but meeting with the administrative team and beginning to work on that on a regular schedule to at least develop the plan on how you're going to roll that out, how you're going to include parents and the staff and the committee, what kind of surveys you're planning on doing, what types of forum. I mean, there's a lot behind that. And, I would suggest that you go back to the communication from DESI regarding questions that they raised in terms of what they expected as a process. So what I would like to see, John, is, you take the lead in this. You made a strong recommendation. The committee voted on this. So I'd like to see an update in your reports, at least every other month, that gives us a pretty good review of where you are in that process. And then eventually, present your rollout plan for the committee to be aware of. We've discussed it repeatedly. We're done. The vote was taken. Now, it's under your leadership, John, that you work with your administrative team and put a little bit of time aside to address this. Just like a number of great things you brought to our attention and initiatives going forward, you work a little bit at a time on each one of these initiatives. So I don't want to make it as strong as a motion to have this, but just as a friendly reminder, keep this in the forefront and please keep the committee informed of the progress that you'll be making.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. We are going to provide an update in June, but just keep in mind, we're still trying to get through this year. Administration, we're rolling out MCAS, it started last week, this week. It's been now done for the first time remotely with all these, spring events coming up. Honestly, there hasn't been time to work on anything with the 6th grade. We're just trying to survive and get through this school year, but we will provide, I already contacted administration about this. We're going to be meeting as administration team. So we'll have an update for you at the next meeting. And yes, Alan, I do agree, we'll have periodic updates, whether it's every meeting or at least every other meeting moving forward. I think it's important, but just time has been so limited and we're so strapped and we're still very short-staffed in all our schools and our our principals have done an amazing job just trying to keep everything together. But it's unlike any other year. I don't think anybody can really appreciate it. Even if you've worked in a school, if you're not working in a school right now, and the staff could attest to this, it's very difficult. But it is something obviously that's important. We are going to follow the guidance from DESE as we roll it out. And yes, we will keep everybody up to date starting next month. That's our intention. But right now, quite honestly, we just haven't had the time to even begin. But we will have an update for you in June. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, John. Appreciate
Yeah, thanks, Alan.
your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, Rena has her hand raised.
Yeah, in terms of, I just had a quick question about in terms of the summer school. Have you given any thought to the criteria for which students will be attending, or?
So yeah, that's something we're working on now, is identifying students, in that criteria, and hopefully we're going to have those coordinators in place as well very soon to also join in that conversation. But we are going through and identifying, which students, would be able to attend the summer school program and what the criteria are. So we're working on that now, and again, we'll have that brought forward and updated at the next meeting. But that's something we're in progress in working on. Thanks, Raina.
Yeah, thanks. And I just as an aside, I wanted to give a shout out to everyone who's involved with the spring musical. I just want to say Brian Campbell and Allie Mannion did a fabulous job, as well as all this, really coming up with a creative solution for a real challenge in a real challenging time. And it was a lot of fun to be able to share that with family and friends who are out of town. So.
Although I have to say my mom was a bit appalled at Jonathan using some off-color words as the crazy dentist, but we got through it. He understood. I had to explain it's all the characters. All right. So I don't see anyone else's hand raised, so we can move on to Tanya, Director of Finance.
Good evening, everyone. Everyone has been provided with both of the accounts payable reports for this warrant. There is one for our regular bills, and then we actually had hoped to get the scholarships in on the first run, but there was a little delay in that. So Brenda was able to get that out on Monday. Typically in May, we actually have our meeting a couple weeks later so that those can all get in, but Janice did a good job of getting those to her. So you have two of those in front of you. I won't go into each of them in any detail. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to ask. Karen did send me an email earlier today asking about a specific purchase order, and I was able to provide the backup for that, but I hadn't gotten any other questions ahead of the meeting. So I won't spend a ton of time going through that. Does anybody have any questions? Raina still has her hand up. I don't know if that's for me or... Okay, no, it's fine. I do it all the time too. I'm just as guilty. Jeannie has a question.
Yes, I was wondering which invoice number it was that Karen asked about.
She just asked what the assessment was that we were paying to the Commonwealth of Mass, and it was just our monthly assessment for our retiree health insurance. So okay. Because she saw the word assessment, I think it just stuck out and she was looking for some details. So yes. I just gave her some backup on that because we're the ones usually getting the assessments from the town. So I don't know.
That's confusing to us laymen.
Yeah. So we get assessed by GIC and Franklin Regional Retirement System for our part of our retirement health and pension. So that was all. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. We pay it in 10 monthly installments. So that's that. I will. Oh, go ahead.
Looks like Michelle has her hand up as well.
Tanya, I was wondering if you're going to go over the rural aid document separately.
That's later in the agenda.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
But I would actually, if someone wants to make a motion when I'm done going over the financials, I wouldn't mind moving that into my report since it's part of the financial piece of the meeting. We can certainly do that just to keep things streamlined. But real quick, I'll just present my screen for the revenue and expenditure report. And then if anyone has any questions on that, I'm happy to answer. If not, you guys can get on with the meeting. So again, we're in line with our revenues, nothing out of the ordinary here. We just billed our final assessments to the town that are due June 15th. Treasurer sent those out yesterday. I'm hoping to see our transportation reimbursement here shortly, usually the end of May. First week of June, we should be getting that. So our June meeting, the percentage down here should actually be a negative because we'll have ended up collecting more revenue than we had anticipated between our Medicaid and our earnings from investments. So we're on track with our revenues and anticipate to be, I think with our tuitions, I think we're going to be about $40,000 over budget for our revenue. So that's a plus. And our expenditures, we are still in the positive with all of our categories. There are some transfers that need to be done. They don't actually have to be done. Our line by line transfers are actually something that I choose to do as a director of finance to keep things very nice and clean and tidy. But by state statute, as long as our by category votes are in the positive, we aren't actually required to do them. So I'm going to be doing, I'll be presenting the line by lines to you guys for June because we do have a couple more things that will probably need cleaned up. So you'll see that in the June meeting, but all is well, and we have more than enough funds out there still to transfer to cover any areas where we have some deficits. Originally, I thought we were going to have to cover our preschool deficit within our current budget surpluses, but we actually have opted to cover that, and you'll see that when I get to the rural aid as a one-time rural aid coverage because those funds have to be spent by June 30th. So, but does anyone have any questions on this? I won't put up the whole detail.
Michelle's hand is still up, but I don't know. Okay.
Okay. Let me just go back to the agenda, make sure that I go in order. I'll go quickly to the lunch report before we go to the rural aid. I don't know if Mike Honorato is on or not.
I'm here, Tanya.
Okay, sorry, I didn't. There's lots of M's, so I will put myself on mute and let you speak and present this.
Yeah, before you move on
you.
to that, can I ask you a question before you move on to that item?
Sure.
Tanya, do they do by quarter for the insurance and benefits totals? Whereas we are getting close to the end of the year, we've encumbered the 65. Is that sounds about right in terms of how we'll end up in that line item?
Are you talking about retiree or active?
Well,
no.
Well, the insurance and benefits totals, does that include both?
So the insurance and benefits includes all of our insurances. It includes active, retiree. It includes our
right.
All of our insurance for our buildings and all of that. So what's currently encumbered is what's expected to be spent by the end of the year. But there are some journal entries that get made monthly for the school choice to offset portions of that health insurance. So that is actually one of the departments that I'm going to be looking at, because with all of our turnover in staff, our active health insurance, it will potentially be over slightly, but I'm going to be working on an analysis on that with Suzanne to make sure that we transfer the exact amount into that line that's necessary. So that's a project. But as of now, our insurance as a whole are in the positive. And that's because we had a significant decrease in our unemployment insurance, our workers' comp insurance. The past few years, we've gotten credits back from our audit, which then also means our current premium is lower. So if you look at the lines that go into that specific insurance and benefits, there are quite a few that are in the positive, and we do have the retiree and active to take a look at. But again, with schedules and people taking vacation, when we've been able to get together has been limited, and it's open enrollment right now. So that's why I've pushed that off to the June. So we'll be getting together soon to review those lines.
All right, thank you for that explanation, because that just saved a lot of questions that I had in my
Yeah.
mind. So you did
Yeah, like I said, it includes our
good job.
liability insurances and stuff too. It's not just our employee benefits. It also includes the Medicare tax on wages. So with the shortage in staff, obviously our wages haven't been as high as budgeted either. So there's some savings in that area.
Okay, great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Good. All right, I'm going to switch back to Mike.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So we have our April lunch report. April was a shorter month because we did have our April break for 1 week. We have seen in our school lunch program steady increases in the in-person participation now that more and more students are realizing that meals are free for them. We've seen the number of the free meal kits that we hand out on Fridays curbside trend down, which we expected with more students being back in the building. So for our lunch report for April, we had a positive month. We totaled $41,055.24 in revenue. Outgoing expenses, $34,965.88. And the April may have been a short month for us with days with meals that we actually served, but it was a 3 pay period month. So coming out ahead of $6,000 for April is actually great. So when we look down to the bottom right, as I'm looking at my mouse moving around on my screen, we look down on the bottom right, our closing balance was $115,894.53. With accrued expenses that we actually spent in the month of April, which we will see on our that hit our accounts in May warrant, and the summer salaries included in, we're still ahead $88,897.88. For the month of May is a 21 or 22 day month. So we're looking to finish well ahead by June 30th at the end of June, which myself and Tanya and superintendent schedule will figure out exactly what our plans need to be for next year, moving on next year. And Tanya, can you pull up the claims report, please? So this tiny document is our claims report for April. As you can see, the number of meals that we're actually serving is quite high. For example, Bernardston served a total of 4,982 meals, both in person and curbside. While our curbside, the free community meals that, like I said, that those numbers are trending down. The participation at Bernardston is phenomenal. I think close to 90% of the children that are in the building receive breakfast every single day. And it's exactly what we would like and exactly what we'd expect to see when everyone is eating for free. So again, this documents have been shared with you. You can take a look at the individual numbers. We see Leiden and Warwick, we're still bussing out meals on Fridays. We'll do that through the end of this year. And we'll take a look to see if it's a possibility in the summer, but I'm not sure that Kazimeskis will be able to take care of that for us. But those aren't huge numbers, but they're also small communities, and we know, and Michelle Garuso could speak to it, it goes a long way just being able to help out those out in the communities that don't have access to come to Northfield and Bernardston every day, every week. Does anyone have any questions?
Looks like Nathan has his hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Yeah, Mike, if it's not Kuzmeskis, is there another way to get food up during the summer?
I'm going to take a look at it. The last thing I want to do is promise something and not be able to deliver on it.
Sure.
We'd like to. What we may do in the summer, our summer program is going to be a little different than what it is now. We're only going to have staff in the building 1 day a week, and it's only going to be coming from one kitchen because, again, it's the summer, and the last thing that we need to do is have our food service team working throughout this summer. They've been working straight since June 30th of last year. So the less amount of time that we actually have them in the building and working, the better off we are. But I'm going to talk with Pam at Kosmeskis and see if there's a possibility. But I'll keep obviously superintendent's schedule and the committee informed if we are able to do that over the summer.
Thank you. Michelle has her hand raised.
Hi, Mike. I was just trying to think out of the box for the summer, since we're still going to be in this pandemic. If we could do something with the towns, we're all getting more money for relief. And why couldn't we ask each town to come up with money to provide lunches for children all summer, and maybe work out something with Franklin County Tech again, like what happened last summer?
Right. That's a good point, and that's something we can explore. And Franklin County Tech, the reason that they did not serve last spring, we were able to partner with them, but last summer, with talking to the food service director there, the reason they weren't able to is because of the busing situation.
Right.
But I think that you're onto something, Michelle. I think there might be a way that we can figure out, because all we're looking for is transportation from point A to point B, and point A would be Pioneer, and point B would be Warwick, and point C would be, here I am talking with my hands, and point C would be out in Leiden. So it's not so much paying for the meals. If we could figure out, and I'll work with Brian Snell in Warwick, and you and I can have conversations. All we have to really try to figure out is transportation, and it should be doable. I know that getting buses for that over the summer, that's going to be a tough sell.
Well, how did it work last summer then? They came to Leiden every day.
No, last summer. Well, last spring they came to Leiden every day. Last summer, Franklin Tech didn't do anything. They weren't able to because of the busing situation. We were able to. Okay. We did just curbside at Pioneer, and it was pretty overwhelming, the amount of the need that people have showed by actually coming twice a week to pick up meals. So the need will still be there when the students are out of school. I think we just have to, like you said, we have to get creative to try to figure out the transportation aspect. I think as a group, you, myself, and Brian Snell and Warwick, we should be able to figure something out.
Okay. The days are all running together. I don't know if it was spring or summer. Sorry.
I see Tanya has her hand raised, and Karen. Tanya?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we can reach out to Pam at Kosmeskis, just because the capacity that she has is obviously bigger on the buses through there. But if she doesn't have drivers for the summer, we could certainly reach out to maybe Vanpool as well. They are smaller, but I think they would be big enough to transport, and their drivers may, be looking for work over the summer. And because their special ed services over the summer are more limited, they might have the capacity to be able to do that. So Mike, you and I can maybe set up a meeting with both of them and see what might the cost be per day and that kind of thing, if it's once or twice a week, and so forth.
Okay, Karen?
I just want to commend everybody involved in the food program, planning it, financing it, and organizing all of it. It's been so important to so many people. Especially, thank you, Mike.
Well, thank you, Karen.
Tanya, your hand is still raised. Did anyone want to make a motion to move up the rural aid FY21?
So moved.
Okay. I'll second it.
Okay, great. there any objection to that? Okay, so everyone's in favor of that. So Tanya, would you like to present that now?
I'm just pulling
Michelle,
it up on my
Michelle,
screen
is your
right now.
hand raised from before? Okay.
So we got rural aid again this year. And unfortunately, with everything that the state had going on and all the grants and just all the funding sources that were out and their very, very late approval of their state budget, even for the fiscal year that we were in, the rural aid numbers didn't even come to us until March. So we got $123,611.85. That has to be spent by June 30th. They're not going to let us roll it over. So the intent of the rural aid really is for one-time expenditures. Again, similar to grants, not meant to be used, you know, to fund salaries for staffing that's going to be on board forever, that kind of thing. So what we did is we got together as an administrative team. Actually, we spoke about this and the other funding sources coming through to try to make sure that we were using our funds in a timely manner that made the best use of the funds and when they had to be spent, as well as obviously, you know, what was COVID and what wasn't. We don't want to be using rural aid for things that can be covered through our ESSER grants. So it's been kind of a process through about 3 meetings in collaboration with Ariel, Kevin Seaman, some of the projects that we have going on, Tyler with some technology projects. So, you know, these are basically like kind of like those wish list items that just haven't made it into the budget, but are things that are needed in the school that keep getting put to the back burner. There's some curriculum on here, textbooks that Ariel has requested that will allow us to actually speed up getting, you know, textbooks replaced rather than waiting 2 and 3 years as they get into the budget. So we tried to get those things in. In addition, there's $10,000 in here for a couple pieces of large band equipment. I don't remember the names of them off the top of my head. Kevin Burke can probably speak to those, but because we're in this COVID situation, we can't be sharing instruments. But those are permanent things that will belong to the school, and hopefully after COVID's over, allow us to, you know, let more kids play those larger instruments. Some of the other expenses on here, you'll notice there's ADA compliant infrastructure. This is for a door opener slab and the electrician that's going to be involved in the new door that's getting installed in the science lab. That's actually going to serve as an ADA compliant entrance and exit to the building. If I'm misspeaking, somebody can speak to that. And then the door itself is also being covered in here. We had a repair over at the BES playground. We were originally going to cover half of it out of the rural aid from FY20 that we had left and part of it from the budget. But when this rural aid funding came out, Kelly asked if we could cover the other with this rural aid funding. And I said, you know, I would put it in here and we would see how the rest of the requests shook out. So that's in there. We do not have a screen or projector in our auditorium at the high school. And if any of you have been in the meetings that we had, whether it be a public hearing or a town meeting or anything like that, the technology and the setup that Tyler has very kindly been able to put together is less than ideal. And this is a really good time to, since the new audio system has been replaced in there, to go ahead and put the screen and the projector. So he got all the quotes on that. And I believe we're working with a local company, someone actually who graduated from Pioneer, knows the building and was really excited about doing that project. So some more community connections there. So that is in there. You will notice that some of it's coming from the rural aid and some of it is, there's very small amount that's going to come from the budget. And we had some FY20 rural aid actually left in Tyler's technology budget that he's using to put towards it. So making sure it gets covered, but not taking it completely out of this. Can I go through the last 2 items and then answer questions, Julie?
Yeah. Yep.
The next line down is window refurbishing at Northfield Elementary. There's a number of windows at Northfield that do not open because they are older. And Kevin Seaman connected with a company that makes this special retrofit piece that actually works with these older windows. They came out and they actually installed one complimentary to show us what it did and how it worked. So this is going to do 38 windows at Northfield Elementary. And then the last line was really just a plug because I was hoping to not affect our budget if necessary, but because we had lower enrollment at the end of the day for our preschool, lower attendance, you know, when we were remote, there was a lot of kids that used preschool as daycare, not really as education. So our income was drastically affected this year in our pre-K program. I would have funds in the general fund budget from other staffing vacancies to be able to cover this, but because this money has to be spent and we have other fund buckets per se to cover other expenses for all the COVID stuff and the summer programming and all that, I'm asking to cover that with the remainder of the rural aid fund. So that's the last item on there.
Okay, so Alan and Mike have hands raised. Alan, you can go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, Tanya, I'm sure there a lot of thought went into this. I'm curious, and I know you have to spend it, but I'm curious if the administrative team looked at the types of expenditures they're going to need for the 6th grade move up. And if some of these what look like capital issues, if some of that money could be used for curriculum, software, for the 6th grade as they move up and so forth, if some of that could come from rural aid. So just, I guess that's I mean, you can answer it, Tanya, but I guess that's something that the administrative team must have talked about, because I would just like to see more things toward that or planning for that. But
so
just a question.
Because the funding for the 6th grade implementation team is in our FY22 budget, and that is when the bulk of all that work is going to take place. That would be something we would be looking at if there were additional expenditures that we didn't already account for. We would look to our FY22 rural aid possibly for that. But Ariel has her hand up to answer. I'm not sure that there will be, you know, what the additional software or textbooks or whatever will be, but by us using this rural aid to fund some of our textbooks, that will allow us some flexibility probably within our textbook lines to do that. But Ariel can speak to that a little further because she's been working with that planning team.
Well, I can point out that there is a 6th grade history textbook in here that was originally, we wanted to purchase it 2 years ago, or at the beginning of last year, I should say. But we did not, because we had 3 schools at the time, and I would have had to purchase 3 sets. And at that point, we were already talking about the 6th grade moving. So I held off, thinking that we were going to have the 6th grade move this year, but then they didn't. So we are going forward with the purchase on kind of a smaller scale, because what will happen in the next year is when they come up here, we won't need 2 full big sets with extras and everything, because it'll be like a classroom set. But so we'll have plenty extra. And then kind of going back to what John had said before, the planning for that is just starting to take place. So, and this is what Tanya just said as well. So that's forthcoming, and I think we can't rush ahead and purchase things without really talking about our model and looking at what we're going to do. So, and I have plans for meeting with teachers and really looking at the middle school curriculum as a whole and looking towards bringing the 6th grade in. So, you know, it takes some time, and this money does need to get spent now by the end of June.
Thanks, Ariel. Mike?
Yes, my question is for Ariel and John. During our B&G meetings, we approved the pavilion structure. I just want to verify that we're going to have enough funds to complete that project with the ceiling and the electrical. I see that the ropes course for $12,000 in addition to funds from the CTTP grant is on here. I just want to make sure that you have verified that we have enough funds to make sure that this building is completed. One of the things that you said that would be cut would be the ropes course if we needed to move funding towards that pavilion. And I just want to verify that the funding is in place and it will allow for completion of that structure.
Yeah, Ariel, if you want me to go first. Yeah, we definitely have the funds. We verified that, and Ariel can amend the grant to move funds away from the ropes course if necessary. So we do have the completed structure, just as you described, Mike, with the roof, the electrical. It will be done, and we did verify that even if it wasn't complete by the end of June, it could be complete by the end of August. And our project manager is in it for, whether it's June or August, he's with the project and will stay with it, until it's completed. So hopefully that answers your question, but we do have the funds.
Yeah, that's good, John. Thank you.
Yeah,
and again, because this does have to be spent by June 30th, we would tap into these funds first, I believe, for the ropes course. Actually, that way we have some flexibility for the building, because there is a portion of that grant that doesn't have to be spent until August 30th. So that gives us those extra months over the summer to work on those projects.
Alan, your hand is raised. I think you're still on mute, Alan.
Thank you. I don't remember what the total cost of the project is, but I'm, as a procurement officer, were you able to get the 3 quotes before you made your award? And what was the total?
So Alan, I did speak to the project manager today. He's got 2 quotes. I was hoping to have before this meeting that I could email the Building and Grounds Subcommittee, because they requested the quotes. He's got the 3rd quote on its way. They are just finalizing numbers. He hopes to have it to us tomorrow, if not Monday at the latest. So I will make sure that I send those quotes over to the Building Grounds Subcommittee that requested. I can also send them to you or the full committee if everybody wants to see the quotes. I think the first one was for 40-ish thousand, right around there. I don't know what the second quote is. I haven't seen it myself yet. And the 3rd one we're waiting on receiving, but I will make sure to get the 3 quotes, that we have that before any ground is broken on the project.
Yeah, and I don't have to see them, but I would like to know what they are. And I also would like to know, so when you put this out and you were looking for a project manager, how many people responded, and how would you advertise that? Because I don't recall anything on that.
Well, we actually did post it. We weren't required to post it. And then we had somebody had a local connection to somebody that was available that could complete the project. It was a former general contractor. So I did email Russ and Fred Dupery and ask about the process, and they guided us through, but we didn't necessarily have to post it, but we did post it. And then we were just able to hire this person that was available, that seemed to have all the qualifications that we met with, and thought it was a good fit for the project.
So this was by word of mouth in terms of soliciting someone. You only had one person that expressed an interest?
I don't believe we had anybody respond to the posting. So we started reaching out to the community to see if there was people that would be interested that had met this criteria and have the time to do it and complete the project.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Michelle has her hand raised.
I'm just, Tanya, there is no guidelines for the use of rural aid. I thought
it's essentially to help the schools with funding for rural schools, essentially, that are under these types of budget crunches that we are in, where we're having to cut things or cut back on programs or delay things that have been on the horizon, so to speak, to make sure that we can keep good education and programs for our schools. So we didn't even think we were getting rural aid this year. So this came kind of as a surprise to us. Because again, normally we get this back in August or September, and we have all year to not only, we have more than a couple meetings, admin meetings to plan for this, but we also have more than 3 months to spend it. So with 3 months to spend it, there certainly is not a lot of time for planning either. But I know all of our administration, as well as Ariel as a curriculum director, you always have your wish list of things. to make things better, but things that we haven't necessarily put in the budget because of the constraints and the town's restrictions as far as funding that we've been up against these last few years. So that's where these items came from. And then obviously certain things like students moving up to the high school that need ADA compliance, things that we would have otherwise spent out of other areas of the budget.
Well, one of the things I'm looking at is the ropes course. That's a new thing. It's not something that we've been waiting for. I don't know. I just, I guess planning, to see where we're in need of things for the children is what I thought this was for. And so I see the ropes course, if we go over budget from the grant, is going to come out of this. So I'm just a little confused as to why there isn't better guidelines, I guess.
I guess you would have to talk to the state about that, but it's not meant to be a restrictive thing. And this is actually one of the really only funding sources that we have the school committee vote essentially by usage, because there's all of our grants that come from the state. They say this is what they can be spent on. You have specific descriptions that you can spend them on, and it goes back to the state for approval. So those grants for Title I, special ed, those types of things, those don't have to come to the school committee for you guys to then approve how those are funding the education, because it's similar every year and the state mandates those. The rural aid is not mandated, and they don't give us specific guidelines on how to spend it, which is why our overseer has actually asked us to come to you guys to present to you what we're going to use it for and get that approval, because the state's not overseeing essentially how it's spent. But to back that up with the ropes course, and Kevin and Ariel can speak to this, this is just another program that's part of this community technical partnerships that's going to definitely benefit the students at the high school. And essentially what happened is there's a portion of it, it would be built in almost like stages, so like a lower level and a higher level from what I understand. So what this does is it actually allows us to, depending on what is left in the grant and so forth and so on, combine those to be able to start with a bigger one than we originally were anticipating. And this is going to be another class and partnership that we're going to be able to provide to the students at the high school. And like I said, Ariel and Kevin can speak a little more to that about what that's actually going to look like.
Okay, I do see that Ariel had her hand raised, Kevin, and then Alan. You can go ahead, Ariel. Looks
I think
like
she's frozen.
Frozen. Yeah, Kevin, would you like to go first then?
I can go first. Is that? So just in regards to the ropes course, the ropes course is for students, and it's actually with the thought process of community, team building. If you look into ropes courses, and the majority of this will be a lower ropes course, because that's what tends more towards the team building and trust building exercises. That will not only be beneficial for our students to be utilized on a regular basis, but could also be utilized as we transition students up to the 6th grade, because we'll be transitioning 2 classes up the following year. So that is part of the thought process. And all the elements are broken down into sections, and we can reduce the elements and expand on the elements depending on the funding that we have. So we don't have to build everything at once. So this is really a beneficial thing, and it's also something that has been part of our stewardship plan that was put out there by John Lepore. So this all ties into a vision that we've had for Pioneer that started even before I got here, and that we are trying to make come to fruition, which I think is pretty exciting. And I think the students will be excited, and I think will be very beneficial for the community and our students.
I just want to apologize. My network dropped out, so sorry about that.
That's okay. Go ahead, Ariel.
Probably Kevin said everything that could have been said. I was just going to say that it came from the pioneering stewardship plan from John Lepore, and that was actually approved by a prior school committee years and years ago. So we actually have been waiting for it. It's been in kind of the big picture plan for Pioneer for over a decade. And I'm sure Kevin, he would have done everything else to say about it justice. It is a really great and exciting idea, I think.
All right, thank you. I think Mike's hand was raised and then Alan. So go ahead, Mike.
No, Alan was up first. I'll defer to him first.
Okay, go ahead, Alan. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. No, it's I'm sure it is going to be a great program. I'm just curious as to, since it's been in the works for 10 years, what's the insurance carrier have to say about, increased liability or insurance coverage for these activities? That's all. I'm just trying to cover that base, understand it.
Hey, Tanya?
I was gonna say, I can answer that. So we actually did, once we got this grant to allow us to fund this, I did reach out to a representative at Berry Insurance, and this would be covered under the current insurance that we have, and we wouldn't need any additional insurance for this particular item.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mike, and then Jeannie.
Yeah, I think the main focus here is, the programs are all good. What we're trying to do is good. We just need to make sure that we're not spreading ourselves too thin. And that was one of the reasons I brought up making sure that we had the funds to finish that pavilion. And I think that, the other members just want to make sure that there's no other needs before we spend the rural aid money on certain things here that are listed before some other stuff that may have been priority. But I'm sure the administration team has looked at those avenues and know what they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeannie?
Is the ropes course going to be available to anyone when school is not in session? And what does that do to our liability?
I don't believe it is going to be open. It's not going to be like out where people can get to it easily. It's open to the public. So it's not open to the public.
It's going to be primarily used, just during the school day for our students, unless there's a special group maybe that requests, to use it at some point, and they'd have to go through the process similar to like the building it, building use form and things like that. But I don't know the specifics of how, if they raise the ropes or how that's done on the weekend myself, but that's something we definitely want to, we'll look at and make sure that not anybody can just come and use it on a Saturday or Sunday at their own, whenever they want. So we'll look into that, but primarily it's going to be used just by our own students and or staff.
So is this a ropes course that is not set up all the time? I guess
I think it's permanent. I just don't know. I don't know how they if they look how the ropes are raised so people can't use it or locked, tied together somehow or locked. I'm not sure of that system, but we'll have to check with the company. Or maybe Kevin Burke has the answer because I think he's been talking to the company.
So there are low elements that obviously would be accessible, but it's no different than someone walking on our guardrail that goes next to our field as far as a liability. And the higher courses are not accessible unless the ropes are actually there. But that's definitely something we can address with the company and verify and make sure as we move forward with the project.
That would be great. Thank you.
Tanya, did you have something else to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we did have groups that wanted to use it, they would have to provide us a certificate of insurance with us as additionally insured, just like we do if we go to, say, Northfield, Mount Herman and use their fields for something that we don't have access to. So we would keep those on files, and that would cover us from a liability standpoint if somebody else were to want to request to use that through the building use process.
But I'm thinking of the outdoor component that is accessible to anybody who would walk on the school grounds. walk onto the school grounds.
I think Kevin Burke's saying there's going to be a lower element that like a playground at an elementary school that people could just climb on. I mean, it's just going to be there because it's going to be built. But I think if we get into or have the funds to build the upper course, that somehow the company can restrict that from being used when we don't want it to be used. We just don't know the details yet without having further conversations with them, but we will certainly find that out and make sure that happens.
Is that something, Jonathan, is that something you can get back to us at our meeting next month about?
I believe so. Yeah. I don't know. Kevin Burke's been dealing with the company, how the turnaround time is, but we could certainly inquire about that and try to update the committee about how that would work. Kevin, does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, that seems reasonable. And some of this has been slowed down because the person I was working with actually contracted COVID and was not accessible for a while. So
okay,
that definitely has slowed the process down.
So we'll do that, Jeannie. We'll contact the company and then we can update at the June meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Alan?
So I'm assuming that there'll be a posting that, you know, it's not accessible or not available to the public during non-school hours. So there'll be some kind of posting to protect the district. I'm also, it probably would be helpful if there's a schematic or something that just shows the design so we have a better understanding of, you know, just what they're doing. I don't know if they're belaying, you know, kids that are on the upper level. So if they slip, you know, there's a safety wire that keeps them from making their way to the ground quickly. So it probably would be helpful to just have that schematic so we understand what it is this money's being appropriate for. Not necessarily educational use, because I'm sure there's a great curriculum that, you know, goes with this. So that would be helpful, John.
Yeah, we'll certainly request that of the company if they can provide us with that to share with the committee.
Okay, thank you all. So it looks like we are voting on this evening. Now, I just wanted to ask a question quickly myself. With Tanya, you said that the rural aid is typically used for one-time expenditures, like one-off.
Right. So it's not meant to fund positions and salaries and permanent things that we're going to have to fund year over year.
So that 37,000 then at the end, I know that it says salaries in it, but
right. So it's the one-time issue because we had the shortage in the pre-K tuition this year. So there would be essentially a deficit in our pre-K program, which I would have transferred money from other general fund areas to cover. But because these funds are available and we are on such a short time limit to spend them, it made sense to go ahead and use that because it is a one-time situation that caused us to have that shortage. And unfortunately, none of the other COVID funding sources allowed you to use your monies to essentially make up for revenue losses. So this was the only place that we really have had the opportunity to use any other funding source other than our general fund to take care of that was essentially caused by COVID. So it is a one-time, and that's why it's in here. But it's not something we would be asking to fund a deficit of the preschool program every year from rural aid. If we did, that would be an issue.
I think we just found our 36,000 for world language.
Well, unfortunately, no, because that's a continuing expense. So you can't, and it's next year. This has to be, everything on this list has to be procured by June 30th. So we have to have it ordered and hopefully received. So yeah, so this is FY21's rural aid. And I probably will also at our June meeting, just as a heads up, since we're on the topic of rural aid, we're looking at our FY20 rural aid that they allowed us to roll over to get all the purchase orders in and make sure all of that's going to be spent down. So I may have a small amendment in that so that we can get that money spent, because we never want to send any money back to the state. And obviously this year with school not being in session, it's made it difficult to do some of the things that we had intended to do with that money, even originally, like some of the PV and different things like that. So I'll be working with Ariel and we'll be talking about it at our admin meeting this coming Wednesday, so that if there is an amendment needed, I would bring that to you at this next meeting to allow us to spend all of the FY20 down as well. Because again, they were nice enough to let these things roll over last year, but it's not, as far as I know, this is not going to roll over, and we haven't had any word otherwise.
Okay, thank you. In the interest of time, I just want to, we are at 8 p.m. and we have quite a bit left to discuss, but Alan, you still had something else here?
Yeah, just one other thing. So Tanya, so that I'm clear, this money has to be expended by June 30th or encumbered by June 30th, because those are two different things. Because if it's not critical, I mean, I'll probably abstain only because I want to see the schematics and understand more about the rope course, and I don't want to, vote no because of that. That's just a hesitation. But you're looking for a vote tonight because you want authorization to encumber all these funds, and then you'll be working towards spending them, or you want to start expending them now?
So it has to be expended. So we can't order the ropes course on June 29th. It essentially is allowing us to get the purchase orders in to go ahead and order them. So with the ropes course situation, we would actually spend from this first because of the time constraint, because the monies that are in that CTTP grant, part of it, like I said, is allowable to be spent until August 30th. So we would order the lower section first from the discussions I've had with Kevin Burke from this, so that we can actually, even if it's not installed, we actually have purchased and procured that. There are some exceptions. So if we order something, for example, Kelly's playground stuff over at Bernardston, she ordered it in April. They're telling her that it's possible she might not get it till July. She has no control over that because it's a supply issue. And I actually reached out to the state specifically for that, but we can't intentionally wait till the last day to try to spend the money down. We have to have a plan, and we have to, do our due diligence to make sure that we've ordered and at least tried to receive those items by that June 30th. We had the same issue last year, obviously, with laptops. So there are some exceptions, but I have been talking to the state to make sure that everything we do is in compliance with the way the funds have to be, the timeline for expenditures.
Of course, thank you.
Michelle.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'd like to make a suggestion for next year, because I'm looking at the state's budget, and they might be putting rural aid in there again. Can we plan on what rural aid coming in for next year will be spent on?
So we don't know how much we're getting
right
until like August.
Right.
And usually that's what I'm saying. So usually we have longer meetings and there's more planning involved in how we're spending this. But because we didn't find out the amount till March, we're under a very strict timeline this year. But there definitely can be more planning next year. We had a lot of planning that we did when we had the FY20 rural aid as far as technology and trying to get that implemented. So there was a lot of planning that went into that. But unfortunately, things do change just like our regular budget, and we've been flexible and tried to adapt as we've gone along. But we don't want to leave $123,000 on the table just because we didn't have 12 months to spend it. We only have 3.
Okay, thank you. I guess that will conclude our discussion. If no, Jim Bell, you raised your hand.
Yeah, you mentioned time, Julie. I do have to leave this meeting at 10 minutes of 9.
Great, thank you, Jim. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion? I see Karen's hand is raised.
Yes, I'd like to move that we accept these expenditures listed here for our rural aid in FY21.
Second.
I think there's already a motion. Can you guys give me a second? Maybe not. Okay. All right, I apologize. There was.
No, that's okay. If there's no further discussion, we can go ahead and vote. So Karen, your hand is, okay, good, thank you. Jim Bell,
Yes.
Rena Dowdy,
Rena Dowsey, Northfield, yes.
Alan Genevieve,
Alan Genevieve, Warwick, abstain.
Michelle Girusso,
Michelle Gerusso, yes.
Jeannie Milton,
Jeannie Milton Bernardston, yes.
has Robin joined us? I don't see her. Karen O'Neill,
Karen O'Neill, Leiden, yes.
Nathan Swartz,
Nathan Swartz, Warwick, yes.
Mike Townsley,
Mike Townsley, yes.
Stephanie Winslow.
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
I don't think David has joined us. Okay, and Julie Burke, Northfield, yes. So that motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so now we will go back to subcommittee reports. So negotiation subcommittee, Raina, you're the chair. Is there any report?
Correct. We have not met, so there's nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Building and grounds, Mike is the chair.
Well, we had the special meeting last week, and as you know, we voted for the project for the pavilion. Other than that, we haven't met since then. Moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Curriculum and personnel, Karen is the chair.
Yes, our committee met on the 10th and we discussed the superintendent evaluation. And I'd like to take a few minutes to let people know what the process will be this year and what their responsibilities will be. First, for the responsibility, this is one of your individual responsibilities as a school committee member to complete your own personal evaluation of the superintendent for the fiscal year. It's an annual process. At this point in the evaluation year, spanning the time frame from July 1st, 2020 to the present, only 5 of us have been members for that entire time. 5 were elected 5 months ago. 1 was appointed in late summer, and 1 was appointed just recently. So we have a real mixture. Yes, Stephanie waves. So as you approach this responsibility, keep some things in mind. You can certainly use your own observations as well as what has been provided to you to guide your assessments, but only for the time span during which you have been a school committee member, not prior to that, okay? Additionally, recall that our role is governance, and we're the governing body of the school district. It is not management. As we've been reminded, governance requires us to focus on the what and the why of the superintendent's leadership, not the how. The rubric we will follow helps focus on the what and the why. So that's a good thing. So now the details of the process. Before I launch into this, I emailed a copy of these instructions to everybody this afternoon. I'm happy at any time to personally answer questions that you have, either now or in the future. So interrupt me if there is something that you would like me to explain further, or wait and call me or email me. So
Karen, just one quick thing then.
Yes.
One quick thing then. When I saw the email, there was a link and I clicked on the link and it didn't go anywhere. And I tried it a couple times. So I don't know if I'm the only one that had that problem, but if that link was supposed to get me to the instructions, I guess I'll have to talk to you later and figure out how to do that. The other thing is in the copy that I printed out, it doesn't have in the columns what each area is. So can I assume the rubrics, if you could just go through these columns, just what are the headings?
I can't see that,
Or-
Ellen. What is the title of the document?
So it says assessment performance for standards, and then there's a box and a box and a box and a box, but there's nothing in those boxes saying what the rating is. Is there supposed to be something there? Like you're doing excellent, proficient, needs improvement? Is there?
Okay, John emailed you a document, which is where you are supposed to put your actual assessment. I think that's what you're asking. But let me go through the step by step. And then if you still don't have it, I'll see what I can do. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
First you want to get together your materials. You need something entitled the End of Cycle Summative Evaluation Report Superintendent Form. John sent that to you. It was part of 6 different documents he invited you to look at. I hope you all received those, okay?
I didn't receive that, Karen.
John, I got them. And
Yeah.
it was entitled to the district school committee. It was addressed.
Yeah, I typed in like school_district school committee, whatever that is. But if you're not on there, Mike, I can resend it to you.
It was actually a Google file that he was sharing.
Oh.
So I had trouble printing it myself. You have to open a Google file, so it's in Google Documents. So that may be the hang up there.
Yeah. If anybody wants this stuff printed too, we can print it. And then if you want to swing by the school and pick up copies, just let us know. We're happy to do that as well.
Yeah, just resend it. I'm sure.
Sure.
Okay. And also you're going to need the draft indicator rubric for superintendents. And that's the one I sent a specific link for on May 11th. It's from a DESI site. Okay. I checked the link after you emailed me, Alan, and it worked for me. So I can't tell you what that is doing, but those are guidelines. There's nothing to write on that piece of paper. The rubric addresses all 21 indicators, and it appears much more daunting than it needs to, because John is focusing only on what, 6, 8 indicators, John? How many?
It's somewhere around that. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but you're correct. It's like 6 to 8, correct.
So you won't need to use all parts of that rubric. It covers 3 times as many as you're going to need to use. And finally, you're going to need the evidence documents that John sent to everybody in that Google file. Okay? So once you have all those things, you can begin to write your evaluation. You need to print a copy of the summative evaluation report, the first thing that I mentioned, because we're doing all of this on paper this year. Last year, because of COVID, we tried to do it online if people could, and there were multiple issues with that. So we're going back to paper. So in writing your evaluation, step 1 on it, it has 4 steps, is to evaluate the superintendent on his performance goals using the evidence he's provided and your own observations during the time you've served on the committee. And you record those on page 1 of the form under step 1. So that being completed, you go to step 2, using the rubric and the evidence the superintendent provided and your own observations during the time you've been on the school committee. Evaluate the superintendent on the 4 state standards that every superintendent must be evaluated on, and the focus indicators listed on the report form that John gave you, because those are the only indicators you are assessing him on. You also support those on page 1 of the evaluation form under step 2. In step 3, you take what you did in step 1 and 2 and you combine them for overall rating of the superintendent's performance. You just check a box, okay? Step 4, you can add comments that are helpful that support any of your ratings, but you are required, if your overall rating is unsatisfactory, needs improvement, or exemplary, you are required to make comments that support those ratings, okay? And there's a large box for your, right there, a large box for your ratings. And if it's not big enough for all your comments, you can certainly add another page. Are there questions about these 4 parts of the evaluations? Now, John is showing you his part 2 with his part 1. You want to start at the beginning?
Yes, Karen.
That's actually Julie.
It's Julie.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. All right. Here you can see step 1 and step 2 and where you put your rankings for those. Okay. Next page is where you put your responses for step 3, which is a combined evaluation of 1 and 2. And then step 4 is your comments. The rest of it is John's chosen indicators for step, no, this is not. This is John's goals and your ranking of how he has achieved them. At what point is he in achieving these goals? Okay, and then we have the standards that he gets evaluated on and the indicators that he's chosen to be evaluated upon. And that is it. Okay. There's other room for specific comments on specific portions if you wish to make them. After all that's completed, you need to turn in your evaluation form to Joanne Wallace at PVRS, which is 18 days from now, June 1st. Place it in a sealed envelope, which is clearly marked with both your name and the words Superintendent Evaluation on the outside, okay? Because during the completion of the evaluation process, only 2 people are going to see it before it is read out publicly. So on June 2nd, I will retrieve the forms from Joanne. And in the recent past, it's been the task of the chair of curriculum and personnel and the school committee chair to work together to compile the separate individual evaluations you've made into the single evaluation that is required. The evaluation will be read out at the June meeting of the school committee, and there will be time allotted at that point for members to offer additional comments which may not have been addressed in the compilation, and to discuss the evaluation in general. Questions about that process so far? Again, I wrote out all these parts and emailed them to everybody this afternoon. The CNP voted this week also to invite school committee members who served a significant portion of the year to contribute to the evaluation process. Those would be the following people: Abby Pratt, Seth Kratz, Kristen Gonzalez, Jessica Marshall, and Pat Shearer. I believe Sharon Fontaine was only on the school committee for 2 months or so until she had to leave. So I will let her know why we're not extending that to her. And finally, a thorough evaluation process can serve as a means of reflection, not only for John to consider the progress, but also ourselves to consider the progress made by the administration. But it also helps on our approaches to challenges and goals we'd like to meet in the future as a governing body of the district. I've put on the instructions my contact information, including my cell phone. So if you would like to have any other questions answered later when you're in the middle of something or at any point, please feel free to contact me. Also, Stephanie has decided to recuse herself from this process because she does not feel she's been here long enough to do that evaluation. Anything?
Thank you, Karen.
That sounds terrific. Karen, can so that's a public document. I'm going to request, because obviously when I'm printing things out, John, I'm going to ask you to have your secretary put all that stuff together so I can go in and pick it up when it's ready. But Karen, can we get can we have a copy of you did this process last year? I'd like to see, you know, last year's evaluation. So I'm requesting that as well.
I think I turned in the compilation to John, which is because it's a public document. I no longer have it. And
all right, so I'll ask John to send it, not send it. I'll go in and pick it up.
And since it was just the beginning of COVID when we did it, we didn't have all the Zoom stuff figured out. I certainly still don't. So I did sort of posters and showed everybody what the results were. So it may look kind of strange to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Yep.
Budget Subcommittee, Mike Townsley is the chair.
We've had no meetings since the budget passed. I will say that I did attend the Northfield Town meeting with John, Kevin Burke, and Julie. They passed their articles for the school committee, or for the school budget. And we also went last week to Bernardston, and that passed there as well. So we just have to wait for the last two towns to vote on their budget.
Okay, thank you. Policy Subcommittee, Karen is the chair.
Right. We had a meeting scheduled for this past Tuesday, but Tracy Novick, who's been guiding us through our revision of our policy manual, had a last minute obligation come up, so we rescheduled for this coming Tuesday.
Okay, great, thank you. District Agreement Subcommittee. And I'm not sure who the chair is. I think Michelle's the chair.
I am, I guess. We did meet and we finalized the district agreement. And I believe that Russell has sent it back to Desi one more time. Once we get it back, then we can share it with the full school committee.
Okay, thank you. Jeannie, sorry, your hand has been raised.
Karen, I cannot make that meeting next Tuesday. Unfortunately, I have a wrap up of the Greenfield Kiwanis Golf Tournament.
Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me know.
I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and the Warwick Transition Subcommittee. I'm not sure who the chair is on that one.
I don't think we have one, but I've been doing the reports and they haven't been much to say. at this point. We received back from the town of Warwick their response to our earlier version. We've been going back and forth. I think we're getting close to language, and it's financials that we're figuring out now. Their response went to the attorney, and I think after that we'll have another meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moving on here to our new business, we have the FY22 school calendar. John, do you typically take this item?
Yeah, everybody has the school calendar sent out. We're starting students on September 1st in grades 1 through 12. And then on the 3rd, that'll be a full day of school. And we've listed the vacations and early release days and times. All Fridays at Pioneer will dismiss at 12:55. All the elementary schools will dismiss at 1:45, kind of getting back to our normal schedule, except for the first Friday, September 3rd. That'll be a full day of school. But it's, yeah, pretty straightforward. I don't know if anybody has questions.
John, is this something that is voted on? I'm not sure how the
Yes,
process.
yeah, if you can vote on that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. I guess we can entertain a motion then. Oh, sorry, Jeannie, your hand is up. Alan's hand is up. Okay, Alan?
Oh, okay. I didn't know who was going first. John, did the teachers had input into this calendar? Do they have to vote on it, or they just have input and then it goes to the committee for the vote?
Yeah, it just goes to the committee for the vote. Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll move to accept.
Thanks, Mike. Is there a second?
I'll second it. This is Michelle.
Great, thank you. Discussion? Okay, I guess we can go to a vote. Jim Bell?
Jim Bell, yes.
Rena Daston?
Rena Daston-Northfield, yes.
Alan Genevieve?
Alan Genevieve Warwick, yes.
Michelle Giarrusso?
Michelle Giarrusso Leiden, yes.
Jeannie Milton?
Jeannie Milton Bernardston, yes.
I'll say Robin. Karen O'Neill?
Karen O'Neill, yes.
Nathan Schwartz?
Nathan Schwartz, Warwick, yes.
Mike Townsley?
Mike Townsley, Bernardston, yes.
Stephanie Winslow?
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
David is not here, and Julie Burke, Northfield. So that passes. All right. Next was an item that I had asked be put on the agenda to discuss the school committee goals and objectives. So I think that, over the past several months, this has come up by several different members that we really should work on having our own goals and objectives. So I knew that it would be, I wanted to first at least put it out there to everyone. Several school committee members also, sent me kind emails, asking for this work to be done. So I know that, there's a great majority here that is anxious to get some goals for us. And it's timely for, the upcoming school year. So what I was hoping was to just have a short discussion this evening, if anyone has any questions about it. But then a school committee member actually suggested that perhaps each member send me an email with 2 or 3 goals. And then I can compile them and we can discuss them at our June meeting. So I can put them in a document for us. I can email that out, or we can attach it with the agenda for the next meeting, and then we can discuss those goals and possibly, adopting some or working on goals for the upcoming year. I'm curious, though, I just want to know if anyone is familiar with SMART goals. Please raise your hand if you need an explanation of what a SMART goal is. But it's a really nice format to like a building block for goal setting. So, and in fact, when I was going through and sharing my screen with the superintendent evaluation, his goals were listed in SMART goal format. So basically, the S stands for specific. So you need a specific narrow goal to help narrow things down. The M is for measurable. So you need to define what evidence will prove progress in the goal. The A is for attainable. You have to make sure that the goal is reasonable, that you're not, shooting too high, and that you can achieve it in a specific time frame. The R is for relevant. So you want to make sure that, does this goal align with, the values and objectives that you're trying to accomplish. And T is for time-based. So you really want to have a realistic, specific time frame, like with a clear end date. So that kind of sets us up for success. I wanted to just read quickly just an example of a goal. This is not related to school committees, but an example would be, I will obtain a job as a high school math teacher within 3 months after graduating with my Master of Science in Education. So, the S for specific is the goal of becoming a math teacher. The M for measurable, you can measure that by the amount of applications that you put out, the amount of interviews you've had, or the amount of job offers you've received. The A for attainable, you have the appropriate degree in order to meet your goal of becoming a high school math teacher. The R for relevance, you're setting a goal in order to get a job in the education industry after getting a degree in education. And then the time-based is you've given yourself a deadline of 3 months following your graduation. So, it's just a very helpful way of creating goals. So I just wanted to open it up to everyone for a few moments here. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but I would love it if everyone would be willing to, send me specifically, just so I can compile them, a few goals for the upcoming year for what we would like to accomplish.
I think it's a great idea, Julie. And I like the idea of using SMART as the indicators. The only question I would have, should we narrow it somehow? I mean, we could all be giving you 3 very off the wall things,
Yes, absolutely right. I did think about that. So grateful that you brought it up. Because there are, I did some research on them specifically around school committees. So you're absolutely right. School committees often will set goals, for instance, related to budget, or community engagement and communication. Let's see here. Assessing protocols and practices. One school committee I read had a specific goal for the coming year because they needed to do, there was an absence in the superintendent position. So they had a goal specifically surrounding the superintendent search. So I think that it's a fantastic idea for us to have. It would be nice as issues rise if we could make this a fluid, ongoing process of creating a goal to tackle. For instance, even the 6th grade move, that was mentioned this evening. We could create a goal surrounding that. So yeah, I mean, I'm open to suggestions about that as well. If we want to stick with some subjects and then have some suggestions for goals for each one. Alan, your hand is raised.
Yeah, Julie, I really commend you. I like very much the process that you just rolled out. I think what will come naturally out of this is if people send these to you, you can organize them by category because there'll be some common ground. And then when you put them by category, then we can have a discussion at the meeting in terms of which of these should be short-term goals. And we're going to be, doing that and focusing on it this coming year, and which ones are long-term goals, so that as the short-term goals lop off, you can move the long-term goals into that position and then take a look at the next. So that would make it progressive and an ongoing work in progress. So I think it's a great format.
Great, thank you. That's an excellent suggestion. John.
Yep, Julie, can you hear me? Sorry, this just goes back to, and maybe it's not the appropriate time, but I just want to go back for a minute because of something Karen said about having former members evaluate me. I don't know if a legal opinion was sought on that. I object to that. Former members are citizens now. I don't think they have the power to evaluate me. I would have no recourse on anything. So I'd like to know if, Karen, I guess I'm asking you, did you run that by legal counsel? Because they're citizens at this point, and I don't believe they're entitled to evaluate me. I'm supposed to be evaluated by the committee, the current committee.
All right, John, do you think you can run that by Russell?
Sure, I can ask him.
But I do know that we did it 2 years ago, which was also a period during which there was an election. We did do that once before.
I don't think it's appropriate for John to be doing that. The lawyer works for the committee, not for the superintendent, and so it's up to really Julie to be the one having that conversation on behalf of the school committee. So
okay.
I would object to, okay, I'll leave it at that then.
Okay, thank you. I just want to remind everyone to just raise their hands so that I can call on them. But I was going to say the same. John, if you mind, I will reach out to our legal counsel and just get clarification on that. Nathan, your hand is raised.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. I think getting legal counsel's input on this is necessary. The only thing I would say is that to have a really good evaluation, even though they're not current members, they still were school committee members during the time that we're evaluating. So I would say the more voices that we have, the better the evaluation is going to be. But Russ will know for sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, John, if I didn't see your hand raised earlier and I moved on. So I'm sorry. Any more discussion about the goals and objectives? I really appreciate the suggestions. I think that, if everyone could just shoot me a few goals, it would then be, I think, pretty easy for me to then organize them by category. And then we can sort them and discuss them at our June meeting. So thank you. So I want to keep moving here. I know that Jim has to leave very soon. So is there any other business to discuss before we move on to category 7 business? All right, so old business. So John, I'm not sure if you want to explain on the CT grant.
Oh, sure. I sent an email out earlier today. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read it. I could just go through it very quick or summarize it very quickly. But I sent an email out which was in regards to the CTE grant. School committee member had requested documentation that the full school committee had voted to approve the grant. At the last meeting, I stated that the committee had previously voted to accept the CTE grant. but I wanted to research it to verify. And it appears through that research that the committee had not taken a vote. And I just wanted to state the reason I believe the school committee had previously voted on the grant was because it was presented to the CMP subcommittee on a few different occasions, had been included in some of my superintendent reports, which I attached in that email. So I apologize if this can cause any confusion. I then, reached out because I've been talking with Fred Dupery about this particular project today. And he said, really, the way to it had to be voted on. Most grants don't, but he said because this contained an outdoor classroom, like a building project, even though we went through the building and grounds and got the approval there, and the committee voted on that, because that was included as part of the larger grant, that the committee really should vote on the grant as a whole. So he said the easy, his recommendation and the easy kind of fix for this is just to vote on it tonight to approve the grant. So that's what I sent out earlier today. So really it's just asking the full committee to vote on the entire CTE grant. I think I sent out the action steps that Ariel had applied to the state with, and some other documents today. So I apologize for the late notice and stating that incorrectly at the last meeting. But I think we all agree it's a great project. So I'm hoping it, we can vote on it and it'll pass tonight and we can just proceed moving forward. I think Tanya has specific language regarding the grants themselves. So I don't know, Tanya, if you want to, if they're going to make a motion, what the exact motion would be on the grants.
Yeah, I would just ask that they make a motion and, lay out the 2 grants, because it's actually 2 grants, funding code 406 and 412 together, that make up the $108,000. And I believe, and I can double check because I wasn't on that email originally, the 406 is 50,000 and the 408 or 412, sorry, is the 58,000.
Can you repeat that, Tanya? The 406 is how much?
Give me just a second. I'm going to double check that. You guys actually have that documentation in front of you. I was part of that correspondence, so it's going to take me a second to pull it up because I don't know off the top of my head which is what.
Looks like Michelle has her hand raised.
Yeah, Tanya, I'm trying to pull it up on my iPad, but I can't make it bigger. Can you put it on your screen? And then we can make a motion by reading it.
I have to open the document because I wasn't on that, and I do keep all the grant documents, but because this is not one that I personally manage, it's not one that I sent the documentation out. So if you bear with me a minute, I can pull up that on my screen, but it's going to take me a minute. John, do you actually have it to share, since you were the one who emailed that to the school committee? And if you could pull up the most recent, because we actually amended them again to be able to have.
I've got them, John. I've got it pulled up, John, here.
All right, thanks, Mike.
So the 406, which needs to be spent by 8/31, is 51,800. And then the, looks like the 412 needs to be spent by 6/30 is 50,000. So that's all it says there. It doesn't say 58,000. I don't see the 408 though, what you're talking about. All I see is
it's 406 and 412.
All right, I see the 412. And at the top of that, it says 50,000 in that column, and then the 406 is 51,800.
Yeah, sorry. Again, these are not grants that I prepared or managed, so I did not have.
Hold on, Tanya. So I understand what the confusion is because I did some research. So the 8,000 was a previous amount that was awarded, I think, prior to this grant. So the 101,800 is actually what we're voting on, but the 406 is 51,800 and the 412 is 50,000. So if you want, I can make a motion to for the grant 406 that needs to be spent by 8/31 of 51,800 be accepted, Yeah, we can do them individually, I guess, or we do them together.
I think you can
You
do
can
them
just, you
together.
can do it together. Yeah. you
Okay,
can-
and then grant 412 that needs to be spent by 6:30 is 50,000. And those include the lines, and I'll tell you what the lines are. The administrative salary, let's see here. Teacher, staff, PD, contractual services. There's 4 lines of contractual services, other costs, advertising, and looks like equipment. And that would be for both of them.
Mike, can you just read in your motion, and that is for a total of, and read the total as part of your motion?
Yeah, the total is 101,800.
I second that.
Okay.
I do have those budgets actually up on the screen if anybody wants me to share them. Or are you guys okay since you were provided the documents?
I was
Okay.
just going to actually, I was just going to pull it up as well. Okay. Sorry about that. I'll get rid of this part. Okay, let's see. Okay, so discussion. All right, if there's no discussion, we can move to a vote. Jim Bell.
Jim is
He may
left,
have-
Julie.
Okay. Raina Dasty.
Bernardston-Northfield, yes.
Alan Genevieve.
Alan Genevieve, Warwick, yes.
Michelle Geruso.
Michelle Druso, Leiden, yes.
Milton.
Jeannie Milton, Bernardston, yes.
Robin Knight, she's not here. Karen O'Neill.
Karen O'Neill, Leiden, yes.
Nathan Swartz.
Nathan Swartz, Warwick, yes.
Mike Townsley.
Mike Townsley, Bernardston, yes.
Stephanie Winslow.
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
David Young is not here, and Julie Burke, Northfield, yes. Okay. So that passes. And so next, looks like we have our executive session. So I will ask everyone, I believe that this executive session will include John and the school committee. So I'll ask at this time, everyone else departs the meeting. And we can certainly, we will be coming back into open session when our executive session concludes. Jeannie, were you going to mention that?
I was going to ask that question.
Okay. Yep, we
Julie,
will
would
be
it-
returning. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, would it be possible to just do the other business for personnel and any updates in the good and welfare so that you can come back for the purpose of adjourning? So the people
Sure.
don't have to wait for that.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Does anyone object to that? Okay, is there any other business? We have the category of personnel, miscellaneous updates, good and welfare. Is there anything, there are no items on those agenda points this evening.
I did want
our
to
next-
make a comment, Julie, under good and welfare, I did want to make a comment that that maybe on behalf of the committee, Jonathan can send something out recognizing the nurses in the district and everything that they do on behalf of the kids. I believe, was it yesterday that was the nurses recognition day?
It was Wednesday. Yeah, it was Wednesday, Alan, was a recognition day.
So I just think that'd be nice to have the committee, acknowledge that.
Does somebody want to draft something up you'd like me to send, or it specifically, or like an email?
No, just from my perspective, just make sure that they realize that we're aware of and appreciate everything that they do on the behalf of the kids, particularly during these difficult times. So
sure.
So that they know it was in the forefront of the work that we do on behalf of kids.
Right. Okay, I will. Thank you.
Jonathan, their dedication over the past year is something that no nurse ever started out believing they were going to end up doing. So that part needs to be recognized. It was quite a different way of administering to the health needs of our community.
Karen, your hand is raised.
Yes, I totally concur with that. But I also think we should extend the same appreciation to our teachers and staff who have had to, the staff have had to clean and clean and clean and clean. And the teachers have had to adapt multiple times to changing circumstances, and they've been wonderful. So not just the nurses, although the nurses carried a big portion of this, everybody did. And I think we should extend our appreciation to all of them. Thank you.
Agreed. Yeah, I agreed. And it's nice, coming from the committee. So I totally agree.
I can, if we wanted to come from the committee, I can certainly draft something and then send it around to everyone, with editing, if anyone would like to contribute. So I will work on that. Nathan's hand is raised.
Yeah, I think this is a really good idea. It'd be great to reach out to all three of those groups individually. Like if we could write three letters specifically to each one, I think that would be that'd be a great gesture on our part.
Okay, thank you. Great. So our next regular school committee meeting will be on June 10th, 2021 at 7 p.m. via Google Meet. I am going to check in with our school committee representative for the state and just see if they have received any guidance about meeting back in person. When we attended the town meetings, I was thinking, if they can bring all these people in, why can't we meet? But I do want to make sure that we are following the guidance met by the governor. So, and I don't know if that is specific to school committee meetings, but I want to try to get us back in person as the first available time that we can. All right, so I'm going to send a message to Tyler and just let him know that we are ready now. Nathan, your hand is raised.
Yeah, Julie, just on that note, I think that's a great idea. I'm sure we're all looking forward to meeting back in person. If we could also look into if there are people who, for whatever reason, are unable, if there's committee members who are unable to attend in person, if we could also make sure that they're still involved. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. We could always make sure that we have a call-in option or a video option, still at the meeting on a laptop. Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Alan's hand is up, Karen's hand is up, and Jeannie's hand is up. Alan?
I just wanted to say that you probably should announce then that so people aren't hanging around that when we come out of executive session, it's for the sole purpose of adjourning, so that people know we're done our business. That's all.
Thank you,
Gotta
Alan.
come from you.
Yes, I appreciate that. So when we do, just as Alan said, when we do come back from our executive session to open session, it will be for the sole purpose of adjourning, since we have satisfied all of the agenda items for this evening. Jeannie's hand is up.
Yes, I was just wondering about making a motion that that we adjourn to executive session along with our superintendents for the purpose of, and I was just looking up our agenda to see for the purpose of, can someone add to that for me? Can somebody add to that for me? I couldn't find for the purpose of.
Do
Why
you want me
we're
to speak? Do
adjourning.
you want me to speak, Julie? Just for the purpose of approving executive session minutes.
Okay, and that we will only be returning for adjournment.
I'll second that. That's right.
Great, thank you. Okay, so Tyler's just.
This is Ann. I just want to say, could we please keep the executive session really brief, because my work day starts at 4 o'clock on Thursdays and Fridays, and I am really lagging, and it's already after 9.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, we will certainly do our very best here. Our goal is to never go past 9:30, so I think that we'll meet that goal. Tyler did make us aware. He believes that we can adjourn immediately after, when we move into executive session, and we don't have to come back to open session.
So I will change my motion to say we will be adjourning at the end of executive session.
Great. Does anyone object to that? Okay, perfect. So
I think you do have to come back into open session to adjourn, but I'm not going to make an issue of it. But you do have to come back into open session to adjourn. But whatever. If you want to follow correct procedure.
Then I will rescind my correction.
Okay. I just need to get the go-ahead that we are okay to move into executive session. Tyler.
Excuse me, Julie, I think we have to vote to go into executive session.
Oh,
correct.
Okay. So Jim is no.
Raina Dasty Northfield, yes.
Alan Genovese Warwick, yes.
Michelle Druso Leiden, yes.
Jeannie Milton?
Jeannie Milton Bernardston, yes.
Karen O'Neill Leiden, yes.
Perfect. Nathan?
Nathan Swartz, Warwick, yes.
Mike Townsley?
Mike Townsley, Bernardston, yes.
Stephanie Winslow?
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
And Julie Burke, Northfield, yes. Okay, so we will now be moving into executive session.
And Franklin Regional
So we can do a
Retirement
roll
System for
call
our
vote
part
again.
of
Take it
our
away,
retirement,
folks.
health, and pension.
Raina
So
Dasty
that
Northfield,
was
yes.
all. It wasn't any
Alan Genovese
out of the
Warwick,
ordinary.
yes.
We pay it in 10 monthly
Michelle
installments.
Druso Leiden, yes.
So
Jeannie Milton
that's
Bernardston,
that.
yes.
I will.
Karen
go ahead.
O'Neill Leiden, yes.
Bell has her hand up as well.
Nathan Swartz, Warwick, yes.
Mike Townsley, Bernardston, yes.
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
And Julie Burke, Northfield, yes. All right, thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night, everybody.
Talk soon.
Hey, thank you.